Why vote? I said we vote because of the blood oath that's been spilled for our past leaders and ancestors who have all been killed, to fight for a right that we as humans deserve. That's a reason why I vote, but it's only the first. Why vote? You should vote if you care about your community. I mean, look at your everyday life and tell me, what do you see? Please have mercy on me. Why vote? Is it a perfect place full of peace, love, and positivity? Or are there some problems that can be solved and room for more productivity? Most people hear the word vote and think of a U.S. president, when in reality that position for us is irrelevant. Do you know about state representatives, governors, mayors, or city council members, attorney generals, sheriffs, judges, and local commissioners? See, there are many positions of power we all have a power to impact. But the true reason why we are enslaved is within us, and that's a fact. Please have mercy on me.
Better unmute that mic so y'all can hear me this morning. Wake up, huh? We all got to wake up. Good morning, y'all. You got your coffee, your tea? What you sipping on? Good morning. Welcome to the dark side of education. I'm your host, Rashad Turner, coming to you live and direct from St. Paul, Minnesota. Shout out to Minnesota. Good morning, everybody. We're live on Justice for the Cities and Citizen Ed, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you're tuning in from. We appreciate you. How y'all doing? What up? Miss Como, appreciate you. You know, Miss Como's like everybody's grandma. You know what I mean? She's the grandma of the movement, holding it down. You heading to church. Appreciate you stopping through, Miss Como. We got a lot popping as usual. Every week something's popping major up in Minnesota. You know, last week we talked about the DEED, Department Economic Employment Development. They were keeping that money from our youth, y'all. Youth weren't able to get their unemployment benefits. And I want to let y'all know that as of Friday, DEED changed up their tune, and now our youth are getting their bread. So please make sure if you're in Minnesota, you got a high school student or youth that's working, got cut off back in March when COVID hit. They couldn't get those unemployment benefits. Well, now they can. So make sure we apply, make sure we spread that word. Shout out to the youth that really held that down and made that happen. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on. Everybody's got, you know, problems we all got to deal with. But we got to make sure we take care of our people. But sometimes, you know, as you've seen, people ain't doing that. So the youth had to step up, start a campaign. It has some support from Youth Prize. Shout out to Youth Prize. Y'all got that done. You know what I mean? And there's lots of different ways that you go about getting things done. Some of the youth were bold and upfront and forceful with it. Some of them were working behind the scenes. So shout out to all of the youth that held that down and got things done. But again, good morning. I appreciate y'all tuning in. You know, it's been a frustrating week, right? Earlier this week, I seen this social media post, right? And it's, you know, I'm always trying to let y'all know about the teachers unions and how they get down. But earlier this week, I started seeing teachers unions post flyers on social media about a rally taking place next week on the 15th. A rally where they are saying, cancel the test. That's one of the hashtags. A day without teachers. All right. Also earlier this week, last week, I should say, get this, y'all. The St. Paul Federation of Teachers, Teachers Union in St. Paul, has bullied their way into letting St. Paul Public Schools let teachers decide whether or not they will provide instruction to our children on Fridays. Teachers get to pick, y'all. So do we get our money back for Fridays now? My God. I mean, seriously. Did y'all hear me? I mean, teachers get to pick whether or not they will teach our children on Fridays in St. Paul Public Schools. Who do you think is going to be receiving instruction on Fridays now? All right. Instruction, what else call it before I seen this? No instruction Fridays. Who do you think teachers are going to choose to teach on Fridays? I mean, is that the answer? Y'all have heard me talk about how here in St. Paul Public Schools, there's been multiple news stories on how our children are being failed in 40% or more of their classes. And the answer is give teachers Fridays off. I mean, yeah, they're saying, well, they get to choose. But again, what do you think they're going to choose to do? Right? This is what teachers unions do. Everything they can to kill our children's brains, shrink our children's brains down to the size of a raisin. And they call that good trouble. Think about the inequities that no instruction Fridays creates. Right? We get to talk to families all the time, get to listen, get to hear what's going on. So, I mean, think about those inequities. Who's going to get that instruction? Who's not? Right? What about the mom of 6 who has 6 children under 11, whose youngest was born with Down syndrome? What's no instruction Fridays going to do to that family? What about our EL students, our special education students? See, these decisions that get made, y'all, they get made in these backroom meetings where there's no one, absolutely no one at the table who is truly centering and prioritizing the needs of our children. And yes, that's a big problem. Right? We're not at the table where decisions that impact the present and the future of our children and communities, right? We're not at those tables where the decisions are being made. So these people get to balance budgets on the backs of our babies. And we find out about it afterwards. No matter what these teachers unions say, y'all, watch what they do. Right? It's not about what they say. They can tell us it's all about our children. They're pro students. Yeah, right. No matter what they say, watch what they do. Good trouble. All right, good trouble. John Lewis is RIG. All right, he ain't RIP right now. He's RIG, rolling in his grave. Because here we have the teachers unions once again co-opting. I doubt that John Lewis meant by good trouble that he meant turn your backs on our children. I doubt that he meant that these folks should have so much damn power over our children. I mean, think about it, y'all. Our children's mothers risk their lives to give birth to our children. Then we bring our babies to the public school system, and the teachers unions run them right into the ground. No, you're right. You're right. I misspoke. It isn't right into the ground. It's usually foster care, then juvenile, then prison. Should I unpack that a little more? Cogitate, man. It's wild, y'all. It's wild. What y'all talking about over here in these comments? I see it's popping off over here. Erica, good morning from New Jersey. Good morning. Appreciate you tuning in. What else we got here? Christina, you always waking up early to catch the dark side of education out there in Cali. I know it's warmer out there than it is here. Appreciate you tuning in. A teacher right here, Jesse, says Minneapolis has also instituted a flex day. She said, I'm using it to do small reading groups. Now let's use Jesse as an example of an effective teacher. All right. If all of our children were lucky enough to where their teacher was like Jesse, because I don't have the confidence that all of our children, or even most of our children, will have a teacher who chooses to do reading groups on that flex day. My thought and my thinking is that most teachers who have been tuning in or teaching from their cabins, teaching from the golf courses down in warm states, those folks are going to take the day off. Small reading group, oh, please. So thank you, Jesse. I appreciate you. I really do. And we need more effective teachers, right? Jesse tunes into this show. She's doing some work with us. We're working together. And Jesse isn't bothered by how I come at the teachers union. She isn't bothered how I try to get information out here that will help us all hold our education system accountable. Call that courage, call that bravery, call it whatever you want to call it, but I'm giving you your props, Jesse. I appreciate you. And she followed it up with this. You damn right. You damn right, Jesse. So let me unpack it a little bit more, right? This December 15th, teachers unions across the nation, including right here in St. Paul, right here in Minnesota, will be rallying, right? The rally here is at the Capitol, hosted by St. Paul Federation of Educators. And like I said, their hashtag, one of the hashtags they're using is cancel the test. Another one of their slogans, a day without teachers. A day, and this is the part that cracked me up, and it might have made you laugh too, right? A day, I'll tell you like this. From what I know of my nieces and nephews' experience in St. Paul Public Schools, I'd say a lot of teachers have been off for more than a day, right? Our babies have been without teachers for damn near 10 months now in some of these school districts and schools. So for them to have the audacity to, number one, say, hey, we got to cancel this test, but then also throw in our faces a day without teachers. They're letting us know, it's clear as day, they're not about our children. What would make them think that any day during the school year that they should turn their backs on our children? Now, the cancel the test part. Little technical difficulties right there. My bad. But the cancel the test part, and I hope y'all's back. I don't even know what the hell happened right there, but they come out here with this cancel the test narrative. And I'll tell y'all, when you think about the standardized tests, right? Standardized tests, they're not a measure of our children, right? Our children don't sit in there with the folks who create the test and help come up with questions. No. Teachers do that. Teachers unions sit at that table and help create the questions, help design the test. That test is a measurement of how well our schools are doing, not how well our children are doing. So when you hear teachers unions talk about cancel the test, well, what are they hiding? What don't they want us to know, y'all? Cancel the test, right? So cancel, one of the only ways we have to know how well our schools are doing. These people are protesting accountability, right? The same folks who are protesting accountability are the same folks who will call Child Protective Services to hold parents accountable, right? Have you ever had child protection called on you? You a parent watching this, right? It was probably retaliation. Retaliation for you trying to hold the school accountable. So they called child protection on you. But these people run from accountability. Why? I mean, they say they are for our children. They say our children matter. But remember, it's not what they say. It's what they do. No matter what they say, watch what they do. Because we have to keep in mind, right? They can say, well, we're all about the children. But the fact of the matter is, their responsibility, it's all about teachers. All about teachers. Wages, benefits, working conditions. And they suck at doing that. They don't even do that well. And they tell us it's all about our children. Right? It's their responsibility, y'all, at all times to center the needs of adults over children. And if you pay attention, and you got to pay close attention because, again, this stuff isn't just out there. Right? They're going to run from accountability. You know damn well they're not going to be transparent. They're not going to make it easy for us to be at the table. But if you pay attention, you'll see that's exactly what they do. They center the needs of adults over our children. And the thing that trips me out, I'll see ESPs, TAs. I'll see these folks fist pumping, all about the protest, all about the rally. And it's interesting because you might think that, you know, the teachers unions, they take care of everybody in the building. But it's not, right? That's not the case. It's not even all of the adults in the building. No, don't think that. Right? That might be the reasonable train of thought. Might be something we think we can expect, but they don't take care of all of the adults in the building. So when I see TAs and EAs and ESPs pumping their fists, pumping up this rally, I mean, one of them had the nerve to send me to rally as if I was going to attend. Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to attend. I'm going to be there with some folks counter protesting, counter rallying. Because the thing that trips me out about this, y'all, one of the things, I mean, a lot of stuff is about this is tripping me out, but imagine our children in St. Paul, children across this state of Minnesota, have been sitting at home, forced into this virtual learning experience. Why? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like COVID is fake or it's not, I'm not saying that. But they've been sitting at home because it's been too dangerous, according to teachers unions. Too dangerous to go into a school building with all of the proper ventilation, all of the PPE, and give our children the experience that we pay for, right? Too dangerous for that. But I think there's been 2 or 3 rallies since COVID hit. So it's too dangerous for these same folks to get into a school building with all of the equipment, personal protection, all of that stuff they need, and teach our babies, but they can get out here at the Capitol and rally to cancel the test. Y'all got to think about that. And as I thought about this show today, my frustration, I'm starting to get frustrated with folks who think there's no way out, right? If you're a teacher and you're thinking, hey, well, I'm stuck in this thing, Rashad. There's nothing for me to do. Well, I thought about something earlier this week. Start a new teachers union. Start one. Go through the process and start up your own teachers union and center your efforts around our children, right? Because unions are just taking care of your wages and benefits and working conditions. Start a new union, right? You're looking for an answer. Organize with your teachers, with your EAs, with your colleagues, and start a new union. It's possible. And now that's out there. So I don't want to hear from you teachers who send me emails talking about how you are pro-student, pro-family, and then you turn around and talk about cancel the test. You can't be pro-children. You can't be pro-families. Because what you do is you blame the results of the test on our children. Right? So you teachers that get into my inbox and you're like, hey, Rashad, take it easy. You know, there's good teachers, a part of the teachers union. Well, sure. But some of you same people tell me once a week, or I see something you post talking about the police union, but you're silent on the teachers union. So I assume you're silent maybe because you're scared of that retaliation. The answer then is to start your own union. Right? Are you bold enough to start your own union? And I see a comment here from a teacher, another teacher that's tuning in. Don Allen says, we need a self-contained teachers union that is student-centered. He said it right there. Now, Don is someone I know who will push that envelope, who will speak up for our children. I bet you this, Don won't be sitting back twiddling his thumbs on Fridays. Don won't be just passing our children on to the next grade. He's going to try to figure out something to help our children during this time, because that's what he's always been doing. Right? So the teachers who say, well, hey, I have no choice, I don't believe it. You have an answer. You have a choice. Start your own union. I know some attorneys that are awesome. They're expensive as hell, but they're awesome. I'll connect you with them. But for those people who just drink that Kool-Aid, I'm starting to feel like I have to let you know that you're responsible, right? You look at our literacy rates here in Minnesota. You are responsible. And these teachers unions are just dragging you along. They're dragging you along. I talked about those people of color who in the building who, and you know, Don Allen, he's a teacher of color, one of the few that we have in the state, right? But most people of color in our school buildings who are giving their blood, sweat, and tears for our children, those are people of color. That's where we get our people of color in the school building. If you track back to your K-12 experience, you know, I remember all of the EAs and TAs, right? Miss Crumble, Miss Wright, Mr. Cornelius, all of those folks who really make the day go smoothly for our children. Teachers unions don't care about them. Start a union and include those folks who make the buildings work. And it's frustrating, yes, right? But there's answers. We are the answers. We have answers in front of us. But right now, we're letting these teachers unions murder our children, right? Kill our children's hopes and dreams. And get off my back about, using that word murder. Pick up a dictionary, read that shit, and then you'd be all right. Okay? Because I'm going to get into something later about the white moderates and the black elites. But when I hear, oh, well, you shouldn't use that word, or don't be so loud, right? We're going to get into the white moderates and the black elites, the accomplices. But I want to show y'all some data, right? Because it's one thing to talk about these things, but it's another to also have some context, right? So I'm going to pull up these education gaps at a glance. And I want y'all to just read that, right? And think about this rally that's coming up on the 15th. Think about a day without teachers. Does that data, MCA reading proficiency, 3rd grade, American Indian students, 31% are proficient. 31% can read. Does that look like anyone should be taking a day off? And yeah, you look across that, and I know it doesn't make sense as you go from left to right. Our babies can't read, can't count, do arithmetic, and then they're graduating, right? So yes, there's so much in that. It's a lot to try to understand, but nothing I see there indicates anyone should be taking a day off. And yes, I blame the teachers union. I think the teachers unions are responsible for the numbers that you see on that screen. They're responsible for our children not being able to read. Teacher versus student diversity, right? And I'm going to try to lay it out because, yes, teachers unions are responsible for what you see on that screen right there. You look below that diversity, right? And then let me get to the teachers real quick, right? Right now, and I'll try to pull this up or I'll put it in the comments, but right now, teachers unions are fighting their hardest at Pelsby, which takes care of all of the licensing for teachers. Forget what it stands for, but Professional Standards Educator Licensing Board, something like that. But Pelsby, right now, the teachers union is trying to eliminate 20% of tier 1, tier 2 licensed teachers. That is directly because of how the system's set up here in Minnesota, right? That's the path that a lot of people of color who want to be teachers, that's the path they take, right? Our EAs, our TAs, our ESPs, folks who help make the building operate, make it flow smoothly. When they want to become teachers, tier 1, tier 2, it's a path. The teachers union wants to eliminate those pathways. They want it to go back to being as hard as it was 3 years ago. That's what they want now. While at the same time, they parade teachers of color out. Y'all heard me talk about LIFO before, how our teacher of the year here in Minnesota got fired They trot her around just like, oh, we're all about teachers of color. But behind the scenes, y'all, at the tables that we're not always at, we're not always invited to, what the teachers union is doing is saying, hey, we really don't want more teachers of color. We really don't want more teachers who care. Because teachers unions, they want to protect those pensions of the folks who've been there the longest, right? Think about it. And there's so much to get into with their pensions, but I don't want to get all the way into the weeds. But why would the teachers unions be fighting so hard to eliminate the pathways that teachers of color can take to become a teacher? Well, maybe they want the teacher versus student. They want it to remain 94% white, right? Because that's what we're looking at here in this great state of Minnesota. Sometimes, you might go, if you're from Minnesota and you're a person of color, you're black, you might go out of town sometimes and folks are like, well, damn, there's black people in Minnesota. Oh yeah, we're here. But they're putting all of these barriers in the way so we can't become teachers. Now, if you think about just scrolling down, I mean, there's so much data here. We got a lot to look at. School discipline disparities. You can see that clear as day. Orange bar, number of students enrolled. And white bar, percent of students enrolled was the orange bar. White bar, percent of disciplinary actions. Well, who's getting disciplined? Right? And what's a possible answer to eliminating these disciplinary disparities? More teachers of color. But nope, that's not what the teachers unions want for us. All right, so you look at that data, and it's like I said, who should be taking a day off? I mean, no one. And as I think about who's supporting it, I want to show y'all something about how they co-opt this crap. And I don't even know who this brother is, so, no knock on this brother all the way. But look at that guy. Who else would we want to be sending this false narrative, right? Who else would we want to send the narrative of cancel the test other than a black guy, right? This is their website, Teachers for Good Trouble. Countdown to a day without teachers. This is what they do, y'all. This is how it goes. And it's sickening. So anyone who is supporting these folks, I'm sick of you. Right? You're in the way. If you're supporting teachers unions, you are blocking our children from quality education. And most of the people that support teachers unions and block our children, they have an education. They've had opportunities. So it just blows my mind that they don't want our children to have those opportunities. So we have to get to the tables, y'all. We have to get to the tables. We have to get the information. Otherwise, it'd be too late. It'd be too late. But I'll tell y'all like this. My thinking is this. Teachers unions are on the ropes. Our public education system, and yes, I said our public education system is on the ropes. So yeah, it's past due time for us to step up, right? That time, it's been that time. But we have a real opportunity to get to these tables and influence the change that is happening, right? Because it's going to continue to happen to us and for us until we get to those tables. right? I mean, when you think about that data, I mean, how does that make you feel? How does it make you feel that, you know, our babies can't read, and here these teachers unions are talking about cancel the test, a day without teachers? What are they hiding? I mean, nothing about that data I showed you looks like, you know, teachers should have free time Fridays, right? And choose whether or not they're going to provide instruction for our children. Hell no. The unions say they're for children, y'all. They say it. But you looked at that data, right? It's not about what they say. It's about what they do. And who helps these folks? Who helps these unions kill our children's hopes and dreams? Well, you got it. The white moderates, the black elites. It doesn't matter what city we're in, what state we're in. This is true all around the country, and I've heard it several times. From black people, from brown people, but they say something like this. It's not even necessarily the white moderates that keep us from doing what we want to do. It's our own people. It's our own people who, if they look like me, they've had their opportunities. And for some reason, and I think I know the reason, teachers union, wink, wink, but for some reason, they don't want our children to have those same opportunities. All right, these people will sit in meetings and they'll talk about what's best for the community, and they ain't been in the community in I don't know how long. They wouldn't last 5 minutes at the corner store in your neighborhood. It wouldn't happen. But they sit there in their fresh suits, bow ties, sharp hairlines, and all of that. And they talk about things like, well, those children shouldn't have opportunity scholarships. Right? Opportunity scholarships are something here in Minnesota that we want our children to have, right? We want to have more opportunities to attend good schools. Opportunity scholarship provides an opportunity, a scholarship to attend a private school if you want to. These same black elitists, they will say those children don't, no, opportunity scholarships, no. While at the same time, their own children attended private schools or attend private schools. So when you think about the blockers, and I'm always focused on the teachers union because it's like everybody else is scared to do that. They're scared. Right? They're not willing to sacrifice. So it might get me popped off one day because I come at these giants like this. But it has to happen, right? Because the teachers unions have their claws in the white moderates. They have their claws in the black elites. If you think about the white moderates, and whether you think Dr. King's approach was the approach for you or not, but Dr. King told us about the white moderates. And I want to share his letter. See if I can figure this out. Here we go. I want to share his letter from a Birmingham jail where he warned us about the white moderates, right? And you could see it there, but I'm going to read it. He said, I must make two honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride towards freedom is not the white citizens or the Ku Klux Klan, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Lastly, he said, shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. Do you know any white moderates? Of course you do. Have you told someone, well, just, quiet down a little bit, right? It'll all work itself out. And I started to talk about something earlier at the top of the show that it was, let's say, concerning. Right? I was on this call listening to some youth talk about the unemployment benefits, and there was some frustration around how long it was taking for the youth to get their money, their unemployment benefits. And this young black kid was talking, and I could hear the frustration in his voice. He wanted his bread. But the young black kid, his energy level was up a little bit. Then there was this older white guy. His energy level was up. Ready to take action, ready to get stuff done. Sending the message that there's no time to wait, right? There's no more convenient season than right now. But this white lady chimed in and she said something to the effect of, I agree with the goal you seek, but she couldn't agree with the methods of direct action. And it made me think about the tenets of white supremacy. And the people I talk to a lot, y'all know that I say this all the time. You can have those tenets, right? You can practice white supremacy and your skin color can be the same as mine, right? So those tenets of white supremacy, I hear this woman say what I just told you. And the next time the youngster goes to talk, that fire, that flame that he had burning, I could tell it had died a little bit. All right, it wasn't burning as strong as it was 5 minutes before that. And I said it was concerning to me because I think this is something that happens a lot, whether it's the white moderates or the black elites, wanting us to wait for a more convenient season. One of the tenets of white supremacy, right? And Dr. King said it, right? Who paternalistically, right? Paternalism is a tenet of white supremacy. Let me read off a couple of bullet points around paternalism. Decision-making is clear to those with power and unclear to those without it. Right? So when that white woman chimed in to tell that young black man, well, don't do it that way, right? Here's how it happens. There's a process. Another tenet. And it came up on this call, and it comes up with the white moderates and black elites who support this teachers union. It's the fear of open conflict. They do their work in the dark. They do their work behind closed doors to keep us away from the table. But that doesn't mean that we're supposed to just quiet our voices down and wait until we get brought into the dark for the issues to come to light. But white moderates and black elites who support the teachers union, they're always saying something like this. You just, hey, brother, that's the black elite. Brother, yeah, it's always something about quiet down. It's always something about get in line, wait your turn, right? Don't be so loud with it. But the fear of open conflict, that's a tenet of white supremacy. I'll read you a couple bullets from that. People in power are scared of express conflict and try to ignore it or run from it. That white moderate woman in the meeting I was telling you about, she wanted to run from it. Oh, no. We can't do it that way. That's going to ruin my relationships with this person and that person. Another point. When someone raises an issue that causes discomfort, the response is to blame the person for raising the issue rather than look at the issue which is actually causing the problem. I talked about, a couple of text messages that I received around the title for this week's show. Oh, well, did you need to use that word? And I said, well, did you need to send me this text? But that's a tenet of white supremacy. Send us everywhere, as many different directions, except for the direction of the truth. One last bullet point around the fear of open conflict. It's the emphasis on being polite. I know that it's not easy to straighten our backs all the time and speak that truth, but it's a must. The folks that want us to approach it in a polite way, there's nothing polite about our children not being able to read. There's nothing polite about canceling the test. There's nothing polite about anything that is happening to our children in our public schools. So polite, I don't think it's the route. But to my point earlier, I know there are several different pathways to justice. We have to pick one. Pick the pathway that works for you. And if currently the path that you've been on has been a path that's controlled by teachers' unions, it's time to get off of that path. It's time for us, right? We the people to start to control our education systems. We have an opportunity here, y'all. Again, the system's on the ropes. Teachers' unions are on the ropes. I told you, start your own teachers' union, because when you really get down into the nitty-gritty, you start to look at them numbers. You start to think about the fact that teachers' unions have their pensions in private prisons. Why are you a part of that union? You start to get into the nitty-gritty of teachers' unions, and I'd say, hey, they're going to collapse as we know them. In part because we're going to make sure we're at those decision-making tables. We're going to make sure that those negotiations stay public. There's no reason ever for anything with our public dollars to be private, to be done in the dark. So that's the opportunity we have, is to get to the tables, is to look at our loved ones, and for some of us is to look in the mirror. There's effective teachers out there. There's examples. But back to that nitty-gritty of the money, if you think about this, y'all, schools are in trouble. COVID hit, enrollment's been declining, schools are in trouble. Unless we reclaim our schools. Because if they don't have us, they'll stay in trouble. Y'all get that? They don't have our dollars, they will stay in trouble. So that's what time it is. It's time for us to step up, right? It's time for us to denounce teachers' unions. And we're not, do I need to say this? We're not talking about all teachers. And I'm not going to be qualified, you know what I mean? But I know there's new people tuning in. So we're not talking about all teachers. We're talking about ineffective teachers. We're talking about teachers' unions who are in the way of our children. They're blockers. They're blocking our children from quality education. For the first time since, I don't even remember the date, but for the first time in a long time, we have a constitutional amendment that will put children first. The Page Amendment. You've heard me talk about this before. If you haven't, look it up. The Page Amendment. It shifts the focus of our current Constitution away from the system and puts that focus on our children. So as you hear teachers' unions and you see them rally next on the 15th, I hope you go counter rally. I won't say some of the things that, you know, police officers have said about us when we've rallied in the past. I won't repeat those things, but I hope you go out and you do everything you can to shut those rallies down. I might even call some of my friends who, I'll leave that out of there. But I hope you go shut those things down. All right? And I lost my train of thought. It's probably good because I don't want to say nothing OC. But that's the message, right? White moderates, get out the way. Black elites, get out the way. Until they get out the way, y'all, we have to see them for who they are. Accomplices to the murder of our children's hopes and dreams. Accomplices to the teachers' unions. Until we stand up against teachers' unions, ain't much going to change. That is a mountain that we have to climb, and not because we don't believe teachers should have their benefits, wages, working conditions protected, but because we don't believe in the agenda that your union dues are paying for without your input. We don't believe in that agenda. Teachers are parents. Come join Minnesota Parent Union. Start up a new union, but do something because the parents are coming, right? The days of the status quo in Minnesota, they're going to change. Shit's changing right now. You heard me talk about, I'm going to change subjects here, but you heard me talk about Minneapolis public schools and how the community wanted answers around $31 million of CARES funding and how it was spent. Well, you know what? The district wasn't giving the community answers. They weren't responding to parents. So we had to kick the door down. We had to get technical on them and FOIA their asses. Give us that data then. You don't want to do the right thing, we'll make you do the right thing. And we'll be forceful with it. And you know what they did? They sent that data, y'all. Right? That's the power of parents. We just have to get to the table and not worry about being polite. Polite has us where we're at, right? Polite for Black people has us living in worse conditions, worse off than we were during the Civil Rights Movement. No, I'm not tripping. Look up the data. We're worse off now than we were then, right? So polite ain't going to do it. But as long as we get to the table, y'all, and make them listen, don't give them any options, we make that demand, we're going to change education. When I say to folks, education, it's the biggest issue, right? We have to be focusing on education. That's nothing new, right? When I'm reading Miseducation of the Negro, Carter G. Woodson, a line in there where he's talking about the anti-lynching movement. And before that, he's talking about education, and he says something like, this education issue is more important than the anti-lynching issue. And in his words, let me grab my book. I'm going to give you these words, and then we're going to get the hell out of here. And I agree with this. He says, this crusade is much more important than the anti-lynching movement because there would be no lynching if it did not start in the schoolroom, right? Goodbye. Have a good day.